Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, on a calm, slightly overcast Saturday morning, early. I believe the whole day is going to be like that, only a high of mid 60s. And after that, no rain in sight. So it's going to be a nice week. This week, I was distracted by watching Drag Week and did not do a lot of videoing. I was busy every day, but distracted when exciting things would happen. I had the live stream going all day long every day because I like that. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year. Probably also one of my least productive weeks of the year, but I actually did okay this week. I was building a Jeep Turbo 400. But this morning, I'm going to talk about 9-inch Ford rear ends. And what you see in front of you is a product of my opportunistic ways. About a year and a half ago, let's blame this on rainy days at the boat, because I was at the boat on a rainy day. We have internet service up there. And I found in the Speedway garage sales section a set of axles intended for the Tri-5 housing and axle package that they sell. A Tri-5 Chevy. Well, let's talk about how we talk about rear ends. I've done this before, let's do it again. The most important dimension is wheel flange to wheel flange, where the wheels bolt on. Backing up from there, you have to subtract your axle offset times 2 for your housing flange to flange width. So they sell a 59.5-inch wheel flange to wheel flange for the Tri-5 Chevy, claiming that the stock one is 60 inches, give or take, but that 59.5 doesn't take into account the thickness of the brake drums, etc. So there's always a little bit of come and go, and I think they err on the safe side. So the axles that were listed were for that 59.5-inch centered pinion housing. I knew it was centered pinion by the length of the axles. One was a lot longer than the other one. So I bought them. I think I paid $100 and change a piece for them. A typical set of aftermarket axles is going to cost you $400 or $500 these days. I haven't priced them out in a few months, but consider a pair of axles complete with the bearings pressed on, studs and everything. By the time they get to you, probably going to wipe out $500. I know the axles that Speedway sells, the spline inside where it slides into the differential is extra long, so I could make something shorter than 59.5. I have a 56 wagon. I'm going to put a 9-inch in it, but I will be moving the springs in, so I will be narrowing the axle to match whatever size wheel and tire I want to run. I actually have to measure my 55 because that has a 10-inch wheel under there with a 12-inch wide tire, and there's still room in the wheel well. So that's what you can do in a Tri-5 Chevy when you move the springs in, just the width of themselves pretty much. You take it from being outboard of the frame to inside the pocket of the rear frame. That gives you a lot of tire clearance. More if you want to put a little mini tub in there, but anyway, we're getting off track. When you're talking rear axle 9-inch Ford, there's two popular housing ends. Early big Ford, which you can tell by it has a slightly different bolt pattern and the holes are 1/2 inch that hold the axle in. The offset on those, and your axle offset is measured from the end of your housing to the wheel mounting flange. This is late big Ford, also known as new big Ford or Torino, and it's 2.5, so that makes for easy math. 2.36 on the early Ford. You got to do a little more addition, but with 2.5 times 2, your axle offset combined is 5 inches. So you add that to your housing width, and that's what you get. This particular housing that I found just a month ago, same thing, rainy day at the boat. I'm searching, and here is listed as a 5358. So it's a 53-inch flange to flange, 58-inch wheel mounting surface, a wheel flange to wheel flange. So I knew the axles I had would be close. So I went ahead and bought it. Even if they weren't, it was an awesome deal. I actually ended up buying this one. I bought two that are 4853s and a couple of these early Ford, the HD Ford center section pieces, which is what this is made out of. This is a reconditioned center. I bought it with no tubes or anything. And I got a good deal on it, but by the time I buy tubes and everything, I'm going to have more money in it than I do in this. So I ended up buying this housing for $200. I told you that last time. So if I don't tell the prices, people are going to ask. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, that is unusual. Your typical, if you were to buy this right now, you can find them online right around $800 to $1,000. Housing and axles, which is still an awesome deal, because trust me, you cannot do that by yourself for the same money. Like I said, I'm priced out a pair of tubes for one of the centers I have, and the tubes and the weld-on flanges is almost $300 alone. So, not going to take long to spend all your money piecing it together. I just got lucky on this that I got a complete welded housing that even has a drain plug and a fill plug or an inspection port and a vent. And now the question is, will my axles fit? Because we know they're too long, and no, they don't. This is a dog bone. You can see why. This is made for anybody building a rear end. This one's made by ICT Billet. I modified it a little bit. I actually it came with the axle cut line and the pinion center. This is your pinion offset. I added the center line as well, so you can set it up in the vehicle. But when I check my axles right now, this axle is 100% in. That one won't go all the way in because they butt right here in the middle of my axle cut hole. And the axle cut should actually be right here. This would allow for your center pin if you have a differential. So I have to trim my axles a little bit, but a small price to pay, and then I will have a 58-inch wheel flange to wheel flange, 9-inch Ford housing, center pinion. If you're building a street rod or anything that when you look under the back of the vehicle, you're looking at the back of the pumpkin, as they say, the back of the rear end, a centered housing is a lot better looking than having a centered pinion. Given the choice, if I'm going to build one of these, I'm going to build a centered housing. That way your tubes are the same, everything's symmetrical on the outside, and my pinion will run offset. I don't have a lot of desire to have the drive shaft centered in the car, especially when normally if I'm building something, I don't mind cheating the engine over up to an inch or so to the passenger side for clearance and offsetting my weight, whatever the reasons. You don't need to always have the pinion centered. I prefer a centered housing, which was going to offset the pinion this much. Call it an inch in a 9-inch Ford. But we're not exactly out of the woods yet. Whether you have the early big Ford 2.36 axle offset housing end, or the new big Ford, late big Ford, or Torino style 2.5-inch, there's different bearing styles and housing end styles, which you need to be aware of. There's a lot of choices in a 9-inch Ford. People are usually overwhelmed with the choices, and even as I try to explain it today, it seems to get muddy, but I'll do my best to explain it. So, the factory Ford wheel bearing has a cone arrangement. You're looking right at the bearings. The race is in the housing end, and the seal is this side of the bearing. So, if you had a leaking axle seal, you'd have to press the bearing off. And those are available in the aftermarket. If you're total street, it's an option, not something I would choose. I prefer the sealed bearing, like this, but once again, there's choices. In a pure drag race application, depending on who you're buying it from, they may sell it to you for a street vehicle as well. This sealed bearing, which is pressed on, this is called the wedding ring, holds it on. And there's a retainer that just slips over here and bolts to the end of the housing, along with your brake drum and all that stuff, your backing plate, I mean. So this sealed bearing does not have a groove cut in it for an O-ring that would seal right here. This is a strange housing end, and it is made for the bearing I just described with an O-ring that's going to seal it right here. This style sealed bearing has a actual metal seal that's going to ride right here, and this needs to press into the housing end. So you have to make sure your housing end will accept this style seal. For instance, this strange does not. There's no place for the seal to go. Fortunately, when this housing showed up, I could see that it has the recess machined in it for this style seal, and the axles came with the seal again that rides here, so that is a match. So this is actually my preferred method. You got an inboard seal. If this seal leaks, I can just whip the axle out, change this seal. I don't have to press the bearings off and on, because when you do that, you're going to waste a set of bearings. So every time you have an axle seal leak, if you damage the seal on the way in or whatever, you're going to have to take it all back apart. This, you can pretty much just hammer the axle in as long as you're careful with the center seal. It's a pretty robust seal. You'll probably be okay. And again, you can buy axles that are all cut to fit. They usually give you a generous amount of spline, and you can see this was been cut already. You just have to cut it slow. Chop saw works pretty good. Probably hard on a bandsaw. You can do it on a bandsaw. From a heat perspective, you'd be better off, but either way, I'm gonna have to cut about 3/4 of an inch off either axle, and then I'll be able to proceed forward with my new rear end housing. I believe I mentioned this is 31 spline axles here, and that is probably the most popular. I mean, Ford did it in all their high performance cars. Most of your trucks are 31 spline. All your NASCAR parts that you see out for sale are all 31 spline. In drag racing, they went 33 wasn't real popular. 35 is. 40 is the big stuff, if you will. So this is 30. Having a 31 spline housing and axles puts you in a situation to have a lot of center sections fit, which is the beauty of the 9-inch Ford, because you can just pop the center section out and put anything in here you want. Ratio, differential, style, etc. Just bolt it in. So that's why it's definitely my rear end of choice. All the projects that I have floating around here are all going to have a version of a 9-inch Ford, with the possible exception of one that already has a Dana 60. Dana, for the longest time, 60s, 70s, 80s, you had two go-to rear ends: the 9-inch Ford or the Dana 60. Dana 60 is a strong rear end, awful to work on, cumbersome, if you will, difficult, and heavy. It's very heavy, but it is strong. And when it's under the vehicle, you look under the back of an old Mopar or something. It looks pretty cool with that giant cover under that. So I have a frame that happens to have a Dana 60 that's brand new. So beauty of it is, it's a 4-link vehicle. I can just build another housing with 4-link brackets on it and swap a 9-inch right in there. So no problem. All right, that's it today. I hope this made sense. If I didn't, well, I'll try again next time. Have a great day.